Jamie's wrong all the time with this stuff because he only Googles these lefty, liberal fake news sites.
Snopes?
Snopes is a fake news site. They get busted all the time for fake news. Just Google it, and don't interrupt Kyle anymore.
If you've been a fan of the Joe Rogan Experience for any amount of time, you've probably seen one of those moments where Joe goes off on a passionate rant, and Jamie Vernon, also known as Young Jamie, tries to keep the facts straight. Joe Rogan is a guy who wears his heart on his sleeve when it comes to hot-button topics, but sometimes his facts are a little off base. That's where Jamie comes in. Jamie's job is to fact-check Joe in real time, pulling up sources on his computer, verifying claims, and trying to keep the conversation on track. What makes these moments special is the dynamic between the two.
They were talking about what they would do for a significant cultural event. Let me see if I can.
This is a new policy going into effect February 2024. It clearly defines what constitutes a, quote, sensitive event for purposes of prohibiting certain exploitative or insensitive ads and content.
Yeah, that's it.
While Google already had policies in place for ads and YouTube monetization, this expands the restrictions to Google's publisher network as well.
And so it was defined in a certain way. See if you could pull up what it actually says, because the way it was defined, what disturbed me was that it's very blank.
Joe's passion versus Jamie's patience. Jamie fact-checks, Joe argues, and the audience is left with either a resolution or, more often, a hilarious back and forth where Joe doubles down on his original statement, only to realize later that Jamie was right all along. Why this dynamic works. The relationship between Joe and Jamie goes beyond just host and producer. They've developed a real camaraderie over the years. Jamie is often referred to as Joe's right-hand man, but his role isn't limited to pulling up information on Google or fact-checking obscure details.
I think this was talking about people who are making ads using their platform, not people who are hosting content on their platforms.
So say it again?
I got to admit, I'm a little lost on this one.
I think I see.
So if any of the listeners out there are also a little confused as to...
No, it's about them having the ability to censor you.
Right.
So if you do the Ron White Show on YouTube,
right,
which is owned by Google, if they decide that this something of whatever you're doing is in somehow or another offensive,
they would want to edit it.
The incident with Ron White and YouTube's new ad guideline. Let's talk about a specific example that perfectly showcases the dynamic between Joe and Jamie. On a recent episode featuring comedian Ron White, Joe went on a rant about YouTube's censorship policies.
I don't know what they're saying they can and can't do.
I think it's making ads. I don't know if it has to do with the content. That's on YouTube. I think this policy content change is for people who use the Google Ads platform and create ads like this one I'm showing you right here, so that you can't abuse it.
You can't monetize it. But look how it's phrased, please. Go back to the top sentence. So look at...
Which one?
It says the updated policy provides practice including price gouging, misdirected traffic, and victim blaming during sensitive events. I'm with the first ones. Price gouging, misdirected traffic, I'm with those. But victim blaming during sensitive events, that one gets touchy. Because what do we...
It's just using the ads, though. It's like making some weird ad to pop up to get you to click on something that's going to pop up on content that might be about that event or anything like that.
I understand. But victim blaming, the thing about victim blaming is you can do it both ways, right? Like victim blaming, like with Hamas and Palestine and Israel, you could victim blame on both sides. You could say the Israelis were doing this, and that's why Hamas had to attack. And you say Hamas attacked, and that's why the Israelis are doing this, and you people should have known better, and you people should have known better. That's victim blaming.
Now, if you followed Joe for a while, you know he's passionate about issues like free speech, censorship, and big tech overreach. But this time, Joe's rant was based on a misunderstanding.
All right, violations this... Okay, what is examples, non-exhaustive? Ads that claim victims of sensitive event were responsible for their own tragedy or similar instances of victim... Okay, ads. Yeah, so it's just about ads.
Yeah, at least for now it is. Maybe they could switch it and be like, now all content, but...
Well, that's completely reasonable.
Right.
If it's just about ads, that's completely reasonable.
Right.
Joe had seen a headline about YouTube's new ad guidelines set to take effect in February 2024. And he immediately interpreted them as another attempt by big tech to censor content creators. He was fired up, claiming that these new policies were going to prevent creators from discussing sensitive topics, and that it would lead to further demonetization for creators who talked about controversial subjects. Even after Jamie's clear explanation, Joe continued to argue, throwing out hypothetical situations about creators getting demonetized for talking about current events.
I guess you should want to be able to control how f***ed up the ads are. Because that's kind of, well, is it?
It's just that they're just like you can still use other parts of the internet that can still.
But you can't use
do that.
propaganda.
It's
You
just-
can't lie.
Yeah, you can't use
victim
Google
blame.
ads, which is the biggest part of the internet advertising world.
Right. They shut you out.
Do it somewhere else is all they're saying.
But
Right.
that seems reasonable.
Yeah, that's pretty reasonable.
As long as they're not doing that with the actual content of the podcast. Because I do know that they demonetize. They demonetize people all the time if you talk about certain subjects. It's always been a problem.
Jamie's third attempt and Joe's realization. At this point, it was clear that Joe still didn't get it. So Jamie pulled up the actual text of the policy and read it out loud. The new policy applies to advertisers using Google's platform, Jamie explained. It's designed to prevent companies from running ads that exploit sensitive events like tragedies. It doesn't affect what creators can post.
I saw a video today of a boxing match between a father and a son. It made me so sad. It made me so sad. Because there's this young kid. He looks like he's probably like 17 or 18. And the father's 42. And the father beats the out of him. I mean, like, dings him in the head and keeps punching him. I'm like, that's your son. That's your son.
The viral father-son boxing match mistake. This wasn't the first time something like this has happened on the show. One of the most famous examples of Joe being wrong and Jamie correcting him came when Joe saw a viral video of what he thought was a boxing match between a father and son. Joe was visibly upset, describing how the father brutally knocked out his own son in the ring and how horrible it was to watch. Joe even said it made him want to cry, talking about how damaging this kind of thing could be for the son. But then, Jamie fact-checked it. The video wasn't of a father and son at all. It was two YouTubers who had challenged each other to a boxing match.
I don't know what the thing was. Like, someone sent it to me, and they were like cheering that this old guy knocked his son out. I was like, you guys are crazy. That you failed. You failed
was
as a
it
man.
this?
Yeah, this is it.
That's
Oh
not
my
exactly what
gosh.
was happening.
It's not? What is it?
They're not father-son.
Oh, why does it lie? It
Because
says
that's
father
what-
knocks out son
Yeah,
in
but
celebrity
that's-
boxing match.
Gotta get somebody to click on this.
Oh.
This was like a YouTuber thing. This guy's a YouTuber and he's a YouTuber.
I'm such a sucker. They got me.
Hate that.
Oh, now I'm not sad anymore.
Joe had fallen for the clickbait headline, and when Jamie pointed out the real story, Joe laughed it off, admitting he'd been fooled. But even then, Joe couldn't help but continue talking about how horrible it would have been if it really was a father and son. He got so caught up in the emotion of the original story that he didn't fully let go of the narrative, even after Jamie corrected him.